sat on the cold metal bench in the detention block. The walls were gray, the floor was gray, everything on Cerberus Station was gray. He had been locked up for 2 years now, and the gray never changed. The prison station orbited a dead moon, far away from any civilization. It held criminals from across the galaxy. Murderers, thieves, rebels, and soldiers who fought wars nobody wanted anymore. Cerberus did not care what you had done. It only cared that you stayed in your cell and followed the rules. Commander was the Warden. He was tall and mean. His face was hard like stone. He walked through the detention block every day looking for trouble. When he found it, he made sure everyone paid the price. Believed that fear kept order. Fear kept the criminals in line. Fear kept the station running. Was not afraid of. That made the Warden angry. The detention block was quiet that morning. The prisoners sat in their cells. Some slept. Some stared at the walls. The guards in their black uniforms stood at their posts, watching everything. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. This was how Cerberus worked. Heard boots coming down the corridor. Heavy boots. The sound meant was coming. Did not look up. He had learned not to show fear. He had learned to sit still and make no trouble. Stopped in front of cell. He looked at the human through the clear barrier. Was not a big man, but he had hard muscles and skin. His eyes were gray like the walls, smiled a small, cruel smile. "You are the human rebel," said. His voice was rough and sharp. "The one who fought the collective and lived, the one who lost, the one who ran." Said nothing. "You think you are strong," continued. "You think humans are special, you think your kind matters." He shook his head. "Here on Cerberus you are nothing, you are a criminal, you are a prisoner, you are dirt under my boot." Still did not respond. He did not move, he did not change his face. Grew angry. He was used to prisoners who reacted. He was used to fear. This human silence was an insult. Pressed a button on his control device, and the cell barrier opened with a hiss. Knew what was coming. He did not run. He did not fight. He simply sat on the bench and waited. Stepped inside the cell. He looked down at the human sitting before him. Then, without warning, he kicked hard in the side. It was a brutal kick meant to hurt and humiliate. The guard force was strong, fell off the bench and hit the floor. Stood above him, breathing hard. "That is what happens when you disrespect me. That is what happens when you think you are important. You are nothing. You will always be nothing." Slowly got to his feet. He did not cry out. He did not show pain. He simply stood and looked at the Warden with the same gray eyes. He said one word, "Emma." Did not understand. He did not care. He walked out of the cell and the barrier closed behind him with a hiss. His footsteps disappeared down the corridor. In the corner of the detention block, in a small living space next to her father's cell, Emma had seen everything. She was 8 years old and small for her age. She had brown hair and serious dark eyes. She was not supposed to be on Cerberus. Children were not supposed to live in a prison station, but had fought for her right to stay with him. The galactic authorities, impressed by his bravery and tired of his lawyers, had allowed it. Emma lived in a small sealed room connected to her father's cell. She had a bed, a screen for learning and books. She had her father. Emma watched the Warden kick her father. She watched him fall. She watched him stand up again, unchanged. And then she heard her father say her name. Turned and looked at the transparent wall separating his cell from hers. He nodded very slowly. It was a signal. It meant, "I am fine." It means, "Do not worry." It meant something else too, something Emma understood without words. Emma stood up from where she sat. She was small and quiet. The guards did not pay attention to her. Nobody paid attention to children on a prison station. She was invisible. She walked to her screen, the learning computer that taught her about human history, science, and mathematics. She had been playing games on it. Now she did something different. She opened a message. Her fingers moved across the keyboard. The words were hidden in a children's music file. The words were written in code. The message was simple. "Help, Warden hurt my father, please help." She sent it into the station's communication system. The message wrapped itself inside thousands of other data files. It hid in the background noise of the station systems. It was too small to be noticed, too unimportant to be investigated. Emma closed the message and went back to her learning games. She acted like nothing had happened. She was just a child on a prison station, playing with her screen while her father recovered from a kick. But in the hours that followed, in the spaces between the station's walls and wires, Emma's message traveled. It moved through communication networks. It bounced off satellites. It reached out into the darkness of space, searching for the people who would understand what it meant. Somewhere out there's crew was listening. They were waiting for a sign. They had been 3 days past on Cerberus Station, and the first problem appeared in the water recycling system. The engineers came to fix it. They worked for 2 hours and found nothing wrong. The water ran clean and clear. By the next morning, it stopped working again. Was not worried, he was annoyed. Machines broke on old stations, that was normal. But then other things started to happen. The security cameras in Block D stopped working. Not because they broke, but because someone had them to show old video. The guards did not notice for an entire shift. When they found out, had them beaten. The food storage room lost power for 6 hours. 3 tons of fresh food spoiled. It was a waste of resources and money. Blamed the maintenance crew. He blamed the engineers. He blamed everyone except the one thing that was actually happening. Someone was sabotaging the station. But did not believe in that kind of sabotage. He did not believe that a prisoner could cause problems from inside a locked cell. He did not believe that someone could access the station's systems without physical access. These things were impossible. In her small room, Emma worked quietly. She had a learning computer, which was really a terminal that connected to the station's network. The computer was designed to teach children. It was not supposed to do anything else. But Emma's father had taught her things before he was captured. He had taught her how machines thought. He had taught her that all machines were just following instructions, and if you understood the instructions, you could change them. Emma did not try to break anything. She did not try to cause damage. She was too smart for that. Instead, she found the tiny spaces in the station's code where orders got lost. She found the gaps where instructions did not connect. She sent little pieces of code into those gaps like planting seeds. Those seeds grew quietly, hidden beneath all the important systems. Nobody was looking for them because nobody believed a child could do such things. Nobody believed that a learning computer could reach into the deep systems of a prison station. The security experts had built walls and locks. They had created perfect protection. But they had not protected against this. A child who thought differently, who saw systems as puzzles instead of barriers. Watched his daughter work. He could see through the transparent wall of her room. She sat hunched over her screen, her small fingers moving quickly. She would work for an hour, then stop and play learning games for another hour. To anyone watching, she was just a bored child spending time on her computer. But knew the truth. His daughter was at war. The second week brought more serious problems. The guards began calling in sick. 3 guards one day, 5 guards the next day. By the 3rd day of the second week, there were not enough guards to properly cover all the blocks. Had to pull staff from other duties to stand watch in the cells. The guards did not know why they were sick. They would wake up in the morning and their body would hurt. Their heads would feel wrong. Some thought it was a virus. Some thought it was food poisoning. None of them realized that Emma had accessed the medical records of each man. She had found the things that bothered them. One guard had a history of migraines. Another had a bad back. Another was allergic to certain chemicals that used to make him ill years ago. Emma did not poison them. She did not hurt them. She simply changed the reports on the food that was served to them. She added small amounts of things that would trigger their old problems. Things that were safe but would make them sick enough to stay home. Things that were technically in the food, but so hidden in the massive ingredients list that nobody would notice. It was cruel, but it was smart, and it was necessary. The guards slept instead of working. The station was less controlled. The prisoners had more freedom to talk to each other. News of the strangeness spread through the blocks. People whispered that something was wrong with Cerberus. People whispered that the station was falling apart. Spoke to his daughter through the transparent wall. He did not use words. He used hand signals, simple signals. Emma watched and understood. Her father was proud. Her father was saying, "Be careful." Her father was saying, "Keep going." On the 14th day, the supply ship arrived to deliver food and medicine. But the supply manifest on the station system was wrong. The delivery crew had the correct list, but the station's inventory system showed different numbers. There was confusion for hours. Arguments between the supply crew and its officers. In the end, the supply ship left with half the supplies it had come to deliver. The supplies that should have stayed were loaded back on board. Was furious. He demanded an investigation, but he found nothing. The station's systems seemed to be working fine. It was just a clerical error, the engineers said. A mistake in the data entry. Emma smiled very small when she heard about that. She had stolen supplies from the station, not because they needed food, but because every small problem weakens control. Every mistake made him angrier. Every failure made him less stable. And an unstable tyrant was a dangerous tyrant, but also a vulnerable one. By the end of the third week had changed. He snapped at people. He made bad decisions. He increased the hours the guards worked. He reduced the food rations, blaming supply problems. He locked down more of the station, trying to find whoever was causing all the failures. But the more control he took, the more things broke. It was a spiral, and spirals only end one way: they crash. Knew this would happen. He had taught his daughter well, though he had not meant to teach her this. He had wanted to teach her kindness. He had wanted to teach her mercy, but he had also taught her to survive. And now, on a gray prison station orbiting a dead moon, survival meant war. Emma continued her work. She was patient. She was smart. She was a child, and nobody was watching her. Somewhere in the deep of space, message was also traveling. His old crew had received Emma's signal weeks ago. They were coming, not fast because fast would attract attention, but they were coming. The honey badger had been kicked, and the honey badger's child was preparing a trap. On the morning of day 26, summoned to the interrogation room. The room was cold and empty. One table, 2 chairs, a light above that was too bright, sat and waited. Came in with anger written across his face. He slammed his hands on the table. "You did this," he said. "You are causing the failures. You are breaking my station." Looked at the warden without fear. "No," he said. "I have been locked in a cell for 3 weeks. I have not touched anything." "You sent orders," said. "Through your networks, through your criminal friends, you are sabotaging me." "I do not have a network," said. His voice was calm and simple. "I have nothing but a cell. I have nothing but my daughter." Leaned close. "Your daughter," he said the words like a threat. "She is the one." Did not move, but his gray eyes changed. They became something colder and more dangerous than before. "If you touch my daughter, you will die before you can breathe again. I do not care how many guards you have. I will find you, and I will make you understand what pain is." Pulled back, he had heard stories of the battles he had fought, stories of enemies who had underestimated him and paid the price. For the first time, fear crossed his face. It was a small fear, but it was real. "She is a child," said. "She cannot access the station systems. It is impossible." "You do not understand my kind," said. "You thought we were stupid. You thought we were weak. You thought kicking me would show your power. But humans are not like other species. We do not need strength to be dangerous. We need only a reason and a mind that works differently than yours." Left the interrogation room and went to Emma's cell. He brought guards with him. Emma was playing her learning games. She looked up when he arrived and showed no fear. "Step away from the computer," said. Emma did as she was told, took the learning terminal and had it scanned by his best technician. It took the technician 6 hours. He found what had been looking for: hidden code, deep code, code that had no right to be there. But he also found something else. The code had a history. Every change was recorded. Every entry had a timestamp and a source, and all of it traced back to files that Emma had accessed on her learning network. Files about children's education, files about children's games. The technician called over and showed him the data. "Sir, this is impossible. The code is embedded in thousands of layers. It would take months to do this. And the complexity, no child could write this. No child could understand this." But Emma could, and she had. Stood in the observation room above the detention blocks. Below him, the prisoners moved about their cells. The guards stood at their posts. The station hummed with power and life, and it was all falling apart because one 8-year-old girl had decided to break it. He understood then what it meant. Humans were dangerous not because they were strong, but because they thought in ways that other species could not predict. They took small ideas and turned them into weapons. They found the spaces between the rules and lived in them. They loved their children enough to teach them to fight. The security systems began to shut down in the next hour, not all at once, but one by one. The backup power went dark. The communication systems stopped working. The locks on the prison cells began to open one block at a time. Realized what Emma had really done. She had not been trying to hurt people. She had been building something. She had been writing code that would activate when the time was right, code that would expose everything. The records came up on every remaining screen across the station. Murders that had ordered, prisoners who had been tortured and hidden in the deep cells, shipments of illegal weapons that had passed through Cerberus, money that had gone into personal accounts, torture sessions that he had watched for pleasure. a young prisoner named David who had disappeared 3 years ago, a medical officer named Susan who had refused to falsify records and had been sent to the worst cell in the station. All of it was recorded, all of it was visible, all of it was truth. Realized that Emma had not fought him with violence. She had fought him with honesty, and honesty was more powerful than any weapon. The guards did not know what to do. Some of them had been part of the corruption. They saw their own crimes listed on the screens. Others had known but said nothing. They saw their silence was over. Walked out of his open cell, the other prisoners walked out too. The station was in chaos, but it was not violent chaos. It was the chaos of a system collapsing because its truth had been exposed. Emma came to her father. She did not run. She did not seem scared. She simply walked out of her room and stood next to. She looked up at him, and her eyes held no doubt, no fear, no regret. "You told me I could be strong without a weapon," she said. Put his hand on her shoulder. "I did not teach you to do this," he said. "No," Emma said, "but you taught me how to think. That was enough." Was led away by the guards who still obeyed the chain of command. He would face the galactic authorities arrived at Cerberus 3 days later. Their ships were large and gray, like the station itself. Officials in dark uniforms walked through the corridors, taking evidence and interviewing every person on the station. The corruption was vast and deep, worse than anyone had expected. Emma stood in a conference room with her father. A woman named Commissioner Riley sat across from them. She had red hair and cold blue eyes. She was an expert in finding truth. "Tell me what happened," Riley said to Emma. Emma told her everything. She explained the code. She explained what her father had taught her. She explained why she did it. She did not cry. She did not look frightened. She simply told the truth, one fact after another. Riley listened and took notes. When Emma finished, Riley set down her pen and looked at. "Your daughter is remarkable," she said. "But she is also a hacker who broke into a prison station's secure systems. That is a serious crime." "I was protecting my father," Emma said, "and I was stopping a man who was murdering people." "That does not make hacking legal," Riley said. "No," Emma said, "but it makes it right." Riley smiled, and her cold face became something more human. "I cannot disagree with you there." The investigation took weeks. Every file that Emma had exposed every crime that had committed was documented. The murdered prisoners were found in the deep cells, exactly where Emma's records had said they would be. The medical reports were confirmed. The stolen money was traced to personal accounts on 100 different planets. But did not deny it. He tried to claim diplomatic immunity. He claimed that he was a high-ranking official and that other stations operated the same way. He claimed that Emma's actions were a criminal violation of privacy laws. The prisoners came forward to testify. A man named who had been tortured for 3 years. A woman named who had seen her son disappear. A medical officer named Susan who had spent 2 years in solitary confinement for refusing to lie. One by one, they told their stories. And one by one, they pointed to a single truth: Emma's records were correct. Emma's truth was accurate. Emma's evidence was real. The guards were questioned. Most of them had simply followed orders. They had not known about the murders. They had not known about the torture. But some of them had known. Some of them had participated. Those guards were taken into custody. On the day of the final hearing, Emma was called to give testimony before the Galactic Court. She sat in a chair with a view of the entire chamber. Hundreds of officials sat in rows watching her. It should have been frightening for an 8-year-old child. It was not. "You accessed the station's secure systems without authorization," a prosecutor said. "Explain why you did this." "Because my father was hurt," Emma said, "and nobody else was going to stop the man who hurt him, and because I could do it." "But it is illegal," the prosecutor said. "Yes," Emma said, "but it was necessary." The courtroom went quiet. In that quiet, something changed. The judges understood that they were not judging a criminal. They were judging a child who had seen injustice and responded with courage. Tried to argue that the evidence was tainted. He tried to claim that Emma had the records, but the engineers knew better. Every file matched the station's original records. Every every piece of evidence was solid. In the end, the judge spoke. "The evidence provided by Emma is authentic and admissible in this court. While her methods violated station security protocols, her intentions were to expose serious crimes. Therefore, this court finds that her actions constitute legitimate, not criminal hacking." Furthermore, this court acknowledges that without Emma's actions, the crimes of Commander would have continued for years to come. Was found guilty of murder, torture, corruption, and abuse of authority. He was sentenced to life imprisonment on a maximum security planet, a place worse than Cerberus, a place where he would spend the rest of his days remembering what had happened. As he was led away, he looked at Emma one final time. She did not look angry, she did not look happy. She simply looked at him with understanding. She understood now that she had beaten him completely, not with violence or strength, but with truth. Was released from Cerberus. The charges against him were dropped. He was given an apology by the galactic authorities for the injustice of his imprisonment. He was offered a position to help rebuild the station and ensure that nothing like rule ever happened again. He accepted. 6 months after his arrest, Cerberus Station was transformed. The gray walls were still gray, but they were cleaner now. The detention blocks were being remodeled. New security systems were being installed, designed to protect prisoners instead of just controlling them. The new warden was a named commander, were tall with blue-green skin and large, intelligent eyes. Was known across the galaxy as a fair administrator who believed that prisoners deserved dignity and justice. When arrived at Cerberus, the first thing he did was meet with the prisoners and the staff. He asked them what they wanted from a new prison system. He listened to their answers, and he actually made changes based on what they said. Became the prison education director. He worked with teachers and counselors to help prisoners learn new skills. He taught them that strength and honor came from choosing the right path, not from fear or violence. Many of the prisoners had been broken by system, helped them heal. Emma attended classes in the station's new academy section. She studied advanced mathematics, systems engineering, and theory of artificial intelligence. Her teachers said she was the most brilliant student they had ever taught. At 9 years old, she was already being invited to give lectures at universities across the galaxy. But Emma did not want to become famous. She did not want to become a celebrity. She wanted to return to being a normal child as much as possible. She played games with other children in the station's recreational areas. She read books in the library. She sat with her father in the observation deck and watched the stars. One day, a news broadcast showed Emma's story spreading across 1,000 systems. The headline read, "8-year-old child brings down corrupt prison warden." The story was told again and again, on every media platform in every language. Emma watched it and felt strange. She had not done this to become famous. She had done it because it was necessary. But now the story belonged to everyone, and everyone had an opinion about what it meant. Some said it meant humans were dangerous and should be feared. Some said it meant humans were brilliant and should be celebrated. Some said it meant children should be protected and kept away from violence. Some said it meant children should be trained as warriors. Emma understood that the truth was simpler and more complicated than all of these things. The truth was that she had loved her father. The truth was that she had seen injustice and could not accept it. The truth was that she had a gift for understanding systems and had used it to fight for what was right. The truth was that she was a child who should never have had to fight any war at all. Sat with his daughter in the observation deck. Emma was 10 now. She was taller than she had been, but still small for her age. She was looking out at the stars with the same serious, dark eyes she had always had. "Do you regret it?" asked. Emma thought about the question. She thought about crimes being exposed. She thought about the prisoners who had been freed. She thought about and Susan and all the others who had been given justice. "No," she said, "I do not regret it." "Good," said. He put his hand on her shoulder like he had done on the day was taken away. "You showed the galaxy something important." "What?" Emma asked. "That humans do not need to be strong or big or dangerous to change the world. We only need to think differently and care deeply about what is right." Emma nodded. She understood this. She had always understood it. Other people came to Cerberus to study what had happened. Engineers wanted to learn how Emma had written the code. Security experts wanted to understand how she had hidden her actions. Military leaders wanted to recruit her for their forces. But Emma turned them all away politely. She had fought one war. She did not want to fight others. Instead, she focused on her studies and on spending time with her father. She helped with the rebuilding of the station, offering advice on how to make the system safer and more fair. She became a teacher, working with young people who had been imprisoned or hurt by the system. And she learned that the real work of justice is never finished, that bringing down one bad person does not fix all the problems, that real change is slow and hard and never complete, but it is worth doing anyway. A year after the rebuilding began, Emma was invited to speak at a conference for prison reform. She was 11 years old. She stood in front of thousands of officials and scientists and administrators. She told them about Cerberus. She told them about her father. She told them about what it meant to see injustice and feel forced to act. She ended her speech with simple words. Nobody should have to be imprisoned without justice. Nobody should be hurt by the people who are supposed to protect them. We know this is true, so we have to fix it. That is not punishment for the bad people. That is mercy for everyone. Because when we treat people with dignity and fairness, we become better, all of us. The crowd stood and applauded, but Emma did not smile. She simply walked back to where her father stood waiting, and they went home together. Across the galaxy, the story of Cerberus continued to spread. It changed how prison systems were designed. It changed how officials were trained. It changed how people thought about justice. And it proved something that humans had always known, that a single whisper spoken with truth and courage could change everything. That a child with a good heart and a brilliant mind could do what armies could not. That the quiet voice of justice, when it finally speaks, is louder than any weapon ever could be. Emma went on to become one of the most important justice advocates in the galaxy, but not because she wanted power or fame. She did it because it was the right thing to do, and because her father had taught her that humans are not defined by their strength or their weapons, but by their choices. In the observation deck of Cerberus Station, where she had once whispered a prophecy, Emma would sometimes stand with and watch the stars. And sometimes, in the quiet darkness, you could almost hear the echo of that whisper. You will regret that. But Cerberus Station was no longer a place of regret and suffering. It had become a place of healing and hope. And that was the real victory. Not the defeat of one bad man, but the creation of something better, something more just, something more human. And that, Emma understood, was worth everything. Emma was offered a scholarship to attend an advanced academy for children with exceptional abilities. Scientists wanted to study her. Military experts wanted to recruit her. But Emma turned most of them down. She asked only one thing, to stay with her father while he worked to rebuild Cerberus. The authorities agreed. On the day that left the station, Emma stood with her father in the observation deck. They watched his transport ship rise from the landing bay and disappear into the black sky. Neither of them said anything. There was no need. Emma had whispered words that changed the future. You will regret that. And she had been right. Justice, but more than that, he would face the knowledge that he had been defeated by a child, that his power had been broken by a whisper, that the human he had kicked and the human's daughter had destroyed everything he had built. As he was taken from the station, he heard Emma's words one more time, though she had not spoken them. They were in the air, in the destroyed systems, in the exposed truth. You will regret that. He already did. The Warden had no idea what was about to hit him. Waiting for 2 years. And Emma, who was only 8 years old and had never known her father's war, had just given them the signal they needed. She whispered something so quiet that nobody heard it, so quiet that even the guards with their advanced hearing devices missed it. She whispered the words that her father had taught her. You will regret that. She did not shout it, she did not scream it. She simply whispered it into the empty air of her cell, and somehow the Warden would hear those words again and again in the days and weeks to come. They would echo through Cerberus Station like a prophecy, like a promise, like the whisper of something that could not be stopped, no matter how hard you kicked or how cruel you became. Emma went back to her learning games. Her father sat on his bunk in the next cell. Neither of them looked at each other again that day. Neither of them needed to. They both knew that something had changed on Cerberus Station, something that would never go back to being the way it was before. The Warden had kicked the honey badger, and now the honey badger's child would make sure he paid the price.